You ever read the story about the guy who did salvia and he became a ceiling fan?
No.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Midnight Oil podcast, where we talk about stories of your firsthand experiences of the paranormal and supernatural. As always, I'm Keeg. This is Tab. I still don't know which way you are. Normally, that's what we do, but today we have something a little different. With us, we have the host of Dead Rabbit Radio, a personal inspiration of mine, Jason Carpenter.
Ooh, yay!
Yippee!
Nice to be here. Nice to be here. For me, it was back in the 80s. They had those Time Life books. They'd advertise them all the time, Mysteries of the Unknown. And it was just this, really cool part of the world. It was scary, right? Like, as a kid, you're, afraid of ghosts, you're afraid of monsters. But then when you start to realize people talk about this stuff like it's not just in a horror movie. This stuff might be real, and there's books about it. And I remember, distinctly, it was around the age of 12 when I became really interested in research, like Loch Ness Monster, Bermuda Triangle. Those were some of my favorite stories as a kid, and conspiracies as well. That Illuminati card game, I think, came out when I was around 12, and I remember going to the comic book shop and buying packs of that Illuminati card game, which is still relevant because nowadays people think those cards actually predicted a lot of the things that have happened. So it's just all that stuff. I used to read books on cults back in the day. So yeah, a short answer to your question is, how can you not be interested in this stuff? It's so fascinating, and there's no bottom to it.
I think that is the biggest thing about not only the paranormal, but all of the true crime, the supernatural stuff. Like, everyone has different experiences in life. Even like you and I and Tab, we could all look at the same thing and have a different story. So there's always going to be stuff. There's always going to be something to cover. And I think that at the end of the day, everyone is perceiving all of these things differently. Yeah. And I think that it's really cool that we get to, on the internet now, have instant access to everybody's side of their story.
Back in the day, you had to buy a book. Someone had to print a paperback book, and you would read that book. And that was the book about ghosts that you got to read. And that is something on the internet came about, and you can go to websites like hauntedplaces.org, which has been in operation since the early 2000s, and you can look at every haunted location in every state. Stuff like that just kind of blows you away. You have these websites, and you have these communities now as well. Before, if you didn't know someone who was into ghost hunting in your area, then as far as you knew, you were the only one who was doing it. So yeah, so much more comes out of the internet with this stuff, for sure.
And talking about community, how did the podcast, I know you've explained how you got it going in the past briefly, but what inspired you? Why did you be like, I want to do this podcast?
Well, it's funny because I was pretty depressed at the time. I've always been a creative person, and I wasn't creating anything. And I remember I was on the phone with my mom, and I said, the only time I'm happy is when I finish something. So I would write, but I wouldn't get to finish it. I'd get distracted, or I couldn't find the ending. So the only time I'm happy is when I finish something creative. So I said that to my mom, but really I was saying it to myself. And I started to think, okay, how do we get that ending as often as possible? That was probably like a year before the podcast. I listened to a ton of podcasts. Mysterious Universe, big paranormal podcasts. Mysterious Radio, another really fun paranormal podcast. And I'd listen to these guys all day at work, and I go, I want to do this. And it was still about a year, maybe longer, where I just wasn't putting my nose to the grindstone. And then finally, one day I was walking home, I was just depressed. I'd get home from work, I'd think all day at work, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to write, I'm going to do this stuff. And then I'd get home from work, and I'd be like, but first, let me watch a little bit of YouTube to relax. Next thing I knew, it was 10 p.m. at night. I was crawling into bed, depressed, And so finally, I was walking home, and I go, I'm doing a podcast. And so I had a podcast in mind called Manifesto. I was going to read real manifestos from killers and mass
like
shooters.
The Unabomber.
Yes. So they're more controversial now. It's funny. I'm kind of glad I didn't do that, because the old manifestos were stuff like the Unabomber. And then the new manifestos are that young man who shot up this sorority. I forgot his name. He's kind of like a a meme at this point. I don't remember his name. But he was the one, and I read his manifesto. He was a guy like in Southern California, and it was amazing, right? He had he could write. It's really sad that he, couldn't get over his hatred of young people and his hatred of women. But I'm glad he didn't do that, because the manifestos now are way more controversial, right? And they're way just more hate-filled than the Unabomber. I mean, Unabomber did kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But, you can read the Unabomber's manifesto and go, I can kind of see where this guy's coming from. But nowadays, you just have so many just like racially charged mass shootings. You're like, do I want to read this guy's? I don't want to read that on air. And I probably couldn't either. They'd get demonetized or they'd get yanked. So there are actually 2 episodes of that recorded. One that was released and one that was released as an episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. The other one's on my hard drive somewhere. But I go, what are the things I love the most? Paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime. And I thought they're actually kind of related. So I walked home from work one day and I was like, I'm going to record. And I just had it in my head. And I got home. I was listening to that song Fireflies by
Owl
that
City.
young kid. By who?
Is it Owl City?
Yes. And I played it on a loop my whole walk home. And for whatever reason, like, I was getting jazzed up and I walked in because I have my microphone and all that stuff from doing music years before. I walked in, sat down and recorded the first 3 episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio, and I never looked back. Like, I loved it, and I finished stuff. Like, I feel, when I'm done editing, when I post that episode, I feel great. So all of that stuff is gone. I mean, still, I have, right now I'm trying to nurse a stray kitten whose eyes keep getting glued shut. I'm not saying my life is perfect. I know. I keep, poor guy. But, yeah, I just feel better.
Yeah, that's
and
what's up.
last thing on that tangent, kind of talking about the manifestos.
Yeah.
We don't super get into politics a whole bunch, but I feel like it's very taboo. Kind of like when you said you can see where, people are coming from. Back then, that, like, everyone kind of, like, I don't want to say got along more, but it wasn't as hard to connect with people that had different views, because you saw a percentage of yourself or a piece of yourself in whatever people were saying. And now it's definitely like our generation and the younger generation for sure, but it's very taboo, or almost like it ends friendships and relationships and everything to just talk about controversial things, or even say, hey, I see where so-and-so is coming from. Now, does that mean that you agree with what the Unabomber did? No, absolutely not. But, you can agree with someone getting fed up with something. And, it's just one of those things where I feel like, it's not a 2 sides of one coin. There's a lot of sides to all these stories, which is, another reason why we both, all of us that have a podcast, do it, because we want to tell those stories.
Yeah.
So,
I will say we did get along better back then. I 100% think that was a real thing. You had outliers in your community, like the hardcore racist guy in your community that you don't really get along that well with him. He doesn't really get along that well with you. But for the most part, people did get along better, and minor disagree. You could sit at the Thanksgiving table and your uncle's saying this stuff about politics, and you say your stuff about politics, and maybe you guys get loud. And then that was the end of it. And now it splits families in half. It's so interesting. And it's not even sometimes controversial stuff. It's like basic things can ruin friendships. And so it's weird. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a media-driven thing. Because the complicated topics are the same back then. But people go, hey, listen, man, I used to go over to my buddy's house, and I must have driven his dad mad. Because I was just like, at Bush. I didn't like George. I'm not going to get into politics, but George W. Bush, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's funny because nowadays, I think they probably would have kicked me out of their house. But back then, he was more mature, right? He understood where I was coming from. I was in college, right? And he knew why I had those viewpoints. He knew that I read the newspaper. We both read the newspaper. We just came to different conclusions, and we're still friends. And I mean, and I would get loud. He would just sit in his chair and be like, "Dude, you don't know what you're talking about." But anyway, so nowadays, yeah, it's a huge, and it's sad. It's sad that that's
Yeah.
changed. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much too. I don't want to.
No. You're good. You're good.
This is all about you.
I do have a question for you guys, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one of you is afraid of ceiling fans? Did you ever hear, or it doesn't matter if you heard my episode, but have you ever read the story about the guy who did salvia and he became a ceiling fan?
No. What?
Yeah. Yeah. This dude, I'll send you the article. I covered it on my show, but this dude smoked salvia and he spent like 20 years as a ceiling fan. He watched this kid grow up.
Was the
I thought when you said I'm afraid of ceiling fans, I thought you were going to say, "Oh, I read this story once, but a guy who turned into a ceiling fan." No, you go, "I'm afraid it's going to fall on me." What are you talking about?
That's my
Like,
worst nightmare.
Yeah.
See, and that is, I never. You know what? I think you have just solidified that I'm never going to try another drug in my entire life. Because if I became a ceiling fan for 20 years, I don't even know what would happen. My brain would shut down.
So
It was trippy. He said, he goes, because I wasn't a human, I didn't understand English. His family was talking and they had, like, he goes, I watched them move in and they were a young couple and then they had a kid and I watched the kid grow up and he's like, the kid had like learning disabilities. He goes, but I didn't understand what they were saying. I could just perceive their emotions. I couldn't understand them because I was just a ceiling fan. He kept going back to, I'm a ceiling fan. And he finally came back to reality and he's laying in bed and he's like, it really shook him because he spent so long in that house as a ceiling fan.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Whenever you
And it
had
was something
said,
too, I
that,
think they never turned him on. I think they turned the light on, but they never actually activated it. And at the ending of the trip, they flip the switch and he starts spinning around and then he ends up back in reality.
Oh my god.
that's so.
But I will
That's
say
crazy.
this. I didn't know about the switch on the fan that you're supposed to do for winter time either. You guys were talking about that.
yeah.
You said there's a
That's
switch
fair.
on it, and in the summer it goes one way, and I didn't know that, so I learned something
Yeah, I didn't
very
either.
interesting from your podcast.
And
Yeah.
that just pissed me off more. I was like, of course, ceiling fans are even more complicated than they need to be, and they're
Yeah.
terrifying.
And you have to dust them a lot. I
You
thought
do
it
have
was
to dust them.
Crazy how often you have to dust ceiling fans. Did the guy ever get dusted? I wonder.
No, I think he just sat there. I think they turned the light on and off. I will say, we're not at my place, but my ceiling fan only has 3 blades. It's supposed to have 4. And one day I had a friend over and I said, this true story, my ceiling fan is making a weird noise, so I really don't like turning it on, but it was hot. So I go, okay, we'll turn it on. And it started spinning and one of those arms flew off. Just flew across. I have it. I'll send you a photo. I'll take a photo of me holding the arm. I never put it back on there, and I don't turn that on no more because I don't know if the rest of them are going to come flying off.
Exactly. It is just the benefits and drawbacks. I hate. Okay, I'm not going to go on a huge tangent, but the benefits and drawbacks of having a ceiling fan, it just does not outweigh not having a ceiling fan. There's no
They don't
way.
do much.
No, get a
Yeah.
floor fan, get an
Yeah.
AC unit. I don't care. It is not worth getting bopped in the head by a piece of wood or plastic or plaster or whatever the
Yeah.
hell they're made of these days. It's just unbelievable. Ceiling fans are unbelievable.
I like my
That
ceiling
thing
fan.
flew off like a bullet. Oh, so I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good. I like my ceiling fan. That's all I was gonna say.
I just there's one on in here to kind of help circulate the air, but I've never been like, dude, I'm so hot. Then you turn on the ceiling fan, you're like, oh, that's what I needed. Like, yeah, get a fan. Turn on the AC.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
I'm going to send you that photo. I'll take that photo when I get home.
Please. And the article. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll send you
Crazy.
that. Yeah.
I don't think
That's
I'm ever
trippy.
going to own a ceiling fan now that you've told me that, because if I ever on the off chance that I'm doing salvia, that I'm not, I don't want to become the ceiling fan.
Oh my.
Well, you know what was
gosh.
trippy about that story, too, is I go, we don't know if it was just a drug trip or if he actually became a ceiling fan on the other side of the country, and you would never be able to verify it. Maybe he did watch this kid grow up.
Yeah.
That's true.
Who knows? But yeah, also he was saying like as the couple got older, they started getting out of shape. He's watching them have sex. But that's a whole different part of the nightmare that you're just like, oh no.
Yeah, the things that you would see if you were a ceiling fan.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm
True.
good on
Everything
the
you see in
whole
the living room.
everything about ceiling fans. I'm good. I would be okay if they were the one human invention we eradicated. I'd be fine with that.
Get rid of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my.
I don't think they're that
Fair.
important.
That's fair. That's fair. Oh
Man.
gosh.
Tab, you want to throw a few questions?
Yeah, I have some kind of like different questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the paranormal believer spectrum was 1 through 5, and 1 is like total skeptic, I don't believe anything at all, and 5 is total believer, I can confidently say all of this is 100% real, where do you lie on that spectrum and why?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I could sidestep it and say it would depend on individual cases, but overall, I would say probably a 4.
A 4?
Yeah, yeah. There are certain things that I lean more towards a 1 in. Psychics. Like I've met people
Yeah.
who have abilities, and they'll tell me things, or they'll explain things to me that I was like, this person, there's something about them that's different. But the day-to-day psychic, like going to a fortune teller to get my palm read, stuff in the newspaper, that is where I'm. It's probably closer to a 2. 1 would mean I never believe it. I would say it's a 2. And for the longest time with Bigfoot, I was probably a 2 as well. In California, it wasn't a big deal. I read about it. I watched the Gimlin Patterson footage and then just kind of was like, oh, that's cool. But I never really believed in it. I moved up to Oregon, and anywhere I go that's appropriate, like I'll go to a hospital, I'll go to a thrift store, I'll go to a used bookstore, I'll always ask, is this place haunted? And, I'm in the emergency room, I'm getting wheeled in for an MRI, and the young guy's like, nah, I've never really seen anything here. But, other people will be like, yeah, no, I think there's stuff in this hospital. When I moved up here, I met a hunter, and I was like, I kind of jokingly asked, you ever see Bigfoot? And he goes, I've never seen him, but I smelled him. I was like, what? And he goes, I hear this story so many times from hunters up here. I grew up in the woods. I know everything about the woods. Like I've been doing this for 30 years. And then one day I smelled something that was completely different. And that just the energy in the area changed.
Whoa.
I heard that story so many times that I moved up from probably a 2 to a 3 on a Bigfoot story. When people talk about Bigfoot, yeah.
It's really funny.
Go ahead.
It's really funny. We were actually, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago? We were talking about how our dynamic is really interesting. I am not a believer of a lot of the paranormal stuff, but the cryptids I'm all in on. And Tab is like,
I'm the opposite.
I don't know. I don't know about some of the cryptids, but I'm all in on these paranormal things. And obviously Bigfoot comes up in every one of those conversations. And I was like, my big take on cryptids is that I think that a lot of them may have existed, but because us humans are very egotistical and self-centered, it's possible that they've been semi-eradicated.
Yeah.
But then you hear stories like you said, where these hunters are smelling things they've never smelled before, and they're only, the only thing that it could be is Bigfoot. Like, or we did an episode on the Loch Ness Monster, and the video is so funny because there was a pope that, or not the pope, what is he? The
Reverend?
It was a saint.
Reverend.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Not the pope, sorry. But he went to go bless the lake, and he just threw a few drops of holy water into the lake and called it a day. And I was like, I don't even know if the Loch Ness Monster could even be in there with how big he is and the amount of food that he probably needs to eat. But maybe at one point, obviously it was smaller. So, like, there's a lot of things that I believe that have, an insane amount, a plethora of knowledge and information from other people and research and stuff. And then there's things about the paranormal that also interest me because I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But I think it's that part in my brain where I'm like, something doesn't seem right. And it's the same thing with some cryptids. What is the like? How do you gauge like when something feels like, oh, this could be real, or I don't know if I believe in that? Because long question. I'm so sorry. That you do Dead Rabbit Radio movie nights and movie days,
Hmm.
and I've stopped in for a few of them at this point. But a lot of the time, there is some before these films is the footage of a lot of paranormal events.
Yeah.
And some of them, you're obviously like, whatever. And then some of them are like, whoa, that's crazy. So, like, how do you kind of pick through what's real, what isn't, especially nowadays?
That's a super interesting question. I have not watched this video yet. I cannot say how real it is, but I just got an email today from a listener named Peter, and he said, "Hey, dude, I heard you talk about that bizarre bub on the podcast." He goes, "That stuff's not real. That stuff has been faked. He's been caught." I don't know how authentic that is. He sent me this video. I'm going to watch it later. Super interesting. He goes, that guy's been caught making up information to embellish the videos he shows.
Oh, wow.
For me, and I'll watch the video and I'll have to make my own determination, but that was interesting that you brought, because I just got that email this morning. For me, I kind of go by too good to be true. Like I have like different levels of it, but if I watch a video, I watched a video the other day that it was bizarre bub, honestly, but it had this creepy music playing, and this girl got sucked underneath the bed, and the mom ran in and pulled the daughter, and I go, that video's fake. I thought the person who made it was fake. Like they sent it to him, and then he posted it. That's too good to be true. It looked like something out of a movie. Just the idea of, and it even had like, after the girl gets taken away, you hear the music continue to play under the bed. No. When I'm looking for content for the show, I'll be reading an account. There's one that I just always remember. This girl says my dad was been possessed, or no, my little brother has been possessed. That happens, right? He's been going crazy and he has black eyes. The black eye thing's a little more shaky for me, but it's possible. But then the brother, like the dad, tried punching the brother, and the brother caught the dad's fist and went and snapped the dad's and I go, this is fake. This is 100% fake. And then the kid is making the dad levitate. And so at that point, once I realized that this is probably fake, my second step is I'll look through someone's posting history. And if they start posting, a lot of people have one or two once in a lifetime paranormal stories. If you have 5 or 6, or they're super cinematic, they have most paranormal stories, a realistic one says, I moved in this house, I think it's haunted, here's all the activity, I don't know what to do, and then one day it stopped. A fake story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a climax where they're like, and then the priest came in and he's throwing the water and the Loch Ness Monster's swimming away and shakes his fist. You know what I mean? It's like, then you go, that's fake. Like, real life doesn't have that. The stories just this paranormal stories that I have, people go, well, then what happened? And I go, I just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And I can base it off stuff that I've seen as well. And sometimes that's not fair, right? I've never seen an alien. With alien encounters, I'm probably between a 3 and a 4, back to that scale. Mm-hmm. A 5, whether or not aliens exist. I'm sure aliens are real, just for the scope of the universe. Do they visit us? Are they abducting people? That's where I'm probably closer to a 3 or a 4. But, I've never seen someone with pitch black eyes. I've seen people with like soulless eyes and, from, drug abuse or alcohol abuse and stuff like that. But, so sometimes I have to go off that too. I've seen shadow people. So when people tell stories about shadow people, I go, it's probably, sorry if you pick up the cats meowing and stuff like that. But yeah, it can be difficult. And I've covered stuff that has been fake before and I've had to issue retractions. It's bound to happen. I did the Civil War Bigfoot story that turned out not to be true. It turned out not to be true. I got all these sources, and what happened was some dude emailed me because I did this episode. I put all my show notes out so people can check my work, and also it hits all of the SEO stuff. This guy goes, "Hey man, I hate to burst your bubble, but that was an April Fool's joke that me and my buddy did on his Civil War website." And it was like 14 years later. He totally forgot about it, and the date wasn't on the article. So Mysterious Universe picked it up on their website and they ran it. And then when I heard about it, I ran it, and then because they don't, Mysterious Universe doesn't normally put the links. I put the links, and it must have pinged something in this guy's thing, and he's like, "I had to issue a retraction." I go, "That just happened." So, and it's a funny story too. Like, who would have thought that? I mean, it's a dope. If it was true, it would be awesome. Civil War Bigfoot, but the fact that it was fake. And the guy contacted me and said, "Oh yeah, sorry, man, we made that up."
Yo.
14 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's funny as fuck.
Another kind of question that I have about the podcast in general is the name. Originally, I think, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in my notes here, but I think the original name of the first episode, at least that was on Spotify, when I first started listening maybe 5 years ago, so I went back 3 years or something like that, when I started listening, was, I think, the 13th Family?
The 14th. Yeah,
14th
the 14th
family?
Yeah.
And it was really funny listening back to that first group of episodes, because I mean, maybe you remember this. There was an issue with the name, and then there was someone like spamming your email or just like being a troll. Do you remember that?
I remember a little bit of that. I remember, so yeah, with the 14th Family, it was this idea. It was based on I'd come up with a story idea, because they say like the Illuminati is really 13 families. And I go, what if there was a 14th family that was like behind the scenes of even them, or there was like an investigative unit. It was like this book idea I thought of. So when I was thinking of putting together a paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast, I go, well, let's call it that. Let's call it the 14th Family. And yeah, I had to ditch it pretty quickly. I do remember vaguely getting weird emails about it, but I think also it was a business thing. How do you spell it? If you tell someone, "Hey, check out my podcast, The 14th Family," do they put in 1-4? Do they put in, spell out 14th? And one of my earliest listeners was my friend Veronica. She goes, "It sounds like a religious podcast. 14th Family does not sound like what you want it to sound like." So I did a little focus group. Dead Rabbit Radio is a terrible name as well, just so we're clear. That does not describe the podcast at all. But I had a list of like Weird News Daily, Paranormal, something, like more SEO friendly ones, and then Dead Rabbit Radio. And for whatever reason, I decided to go with that one. And I like it. I think it has given us the vehicles and the Fluffle, which is a collection of rabbits. That's what we call the group of listeners. And the logo and all that stuff, but it's just not a good name for a paranormal podcast. Like, you got Midnight Oil Podcast. I mean, I guess it also isn't the most descriptive, but your imagery, though, like your logo is like, oh, this is a mysterious podcast. It is almost like the little, like, nighttime-y, the teardrop. You kind of get an idea. I just have a rabbit head. It just doesn't, yeah. I mean, I like it. I mean, it's fine, but yeah, I'd have to think. I do remember, I get weird emails all the time now, so everything just kind of fades off into nothing, but yeah, I mean, I got that email from Peter today, which was helpful, but every so often I'll just get something. I read the first 2 lines and go, it's not, that's my superpower. I don't read stuff that I think is a negative. People go, "You suck. This is the worst." Why do I'm going to read the next 3 paragraphs of that email, bro? I'm not going to finish reading it. Yeah, every so often I'll get threats and stuff like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is the internet personality. It's just kind of how it is. One more thing, and then, Tab, I promise I'll let you talk. I just have so many things I could talk to Jason for 3 days straight. My buddy, and it would be very sick of me not to mention this. We don't talk anymore, but his name's Daniel. He submitted a picture for Dead Rabbit that was used at one point for the episode heads. It was the spray painted rabbit on the wall. I
From
don't
his
know if,
work? Is it the one he did at work?
yeah, the one he did at work at the bowling alley that he used to work at. And I had to bring it up because I was curious how how often do you get submissions for like, or I guess I'll just say, I'll call it fan art. How often do you get that now? Because I've seen so many pictures and stuff in your backgrounds and things like that. Obviously, you've been doing it for 8 years now, just recently. But how often do you get stuff like that?
It's interesting. It's not super often, but because the show has lasted so long, I just got one recently by a Discord member. We just used that on the last episode with the hot air bunny balloon. But I would say maybe once every couple. I'd probably say once every 2 months would be a fair estimate. But right now we have probably like 60.
Wow.
From over the years. Yeah, I'm going to drop this into the, is it this one here? Goose Motion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He goes, don't tell him when he sent me that. He goes, I did that at work, so I don't want to get in trouble. Don't say my location or whatever. I'd forgotten it was a bowl. I mean, it's fair enough, right? It is a graffiti, but no, that's a dope one. We used that one not too long ago, I think. Yeah, I love that stuff. That's something I never... Yeah.
I'll have to reach out to him and see. Maybe we'll bleep the where you worked. But
does he still work there? I don't know. I feel
I don't
bad
think
now.
so. I don't think so. But I thought it was funny. He was actually the one that showed me the podcast.
Gotcha.
Which is, it's really funny how full circle it's become. But yeah, back in 2021, it's when I started listening to it. So about 5 years ago. And he showed it to me, so I don't even know how long he's been listening, but definitely, obviously, before that. And ever since then, until we stopped, chatting because I just moved away and whatnot, it was just, hey, here's this cool thing. Hey, here's this podcast. Hey, here's this YouTube video. And I have a rabbit hole. I won't talk about it on the podcast, but I have I'll send you a rabbit hole of something that he sent me at some point to kind of return the favor of all of the endless hours of entertainment. But yeah, Tab, sorry, go ahead.
So mine are more on like the paranormal side of things. In one of your more recent episodes, you talked about how you caught an EVP in one of the episodes that you recorded, and how when you were editing, I think you said you felt the floor vibrating, like somebody was walking towards you.
Yeah. And go ahead. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Is that like the weirdest paranormal thing that's happened to you, or do you have other like unexplained experiences that have really stuck with you? Yeah,
that's not the most weird thing, but I will say that it happened in this house.
Oh.
I'm at Sabine's house. This is so I'm wearing goofy shorts. Otherwise, I'd get up. But anyway, so this is where I was watching The Mummy. Mm. That's what started the whole thing. I was watching the new movie, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and it was late at night, and this house does not like me watching paranormal or demonic movies. Mm. I can watch horror movies that are like serial killers. I can watch the worst true crime YouTube stuff, cannibals and all sorts of horrible crimes. I'm watching Lee Cronin's The Mummy. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning. I was like, it's getting kind of creepy. I'll finish it tomorrow because I rented it. I woke up 5:30 in the morning. I came out, sun's up. Feed the cats, put in Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and I can feel the floor like someone's walking towards me, like the floor is vibrating. And it's so interesting because, of course, you're skeptical when it's happening to you. Mm-hmm. I think that's the only sane way you can deal with it. I go, is there like a giant raccoon under here or whatever? I stop watching the movie, the sensation stops. Okay.
Crazy.
But then when I was editing the episode over here, I was editing the episode about watching Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Mm-hmm. And as I'm editing that part, the floor is vibrating. So I jumped to a different part of the episode where it's this weird fetish thing. Gross. Nothing. Go back to the Lee Cronin part, floor is vibrating. I mean, it's like unmistakable when you can replicate it like that. And then, I have a desk. The desk I use to record now came out of that room. It had been in that room for 20 years. And she was like, I don't want it anymore. What should I do with it? I go, well, I need a desk. I need a studio space. So yeah, in that most recent episode, there's a weird noise that has never popped up on the podcast before. And it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, it's not like someone talking. It's not a car driving by. It's not an animal. It's just a weird noise that plays. And yeah, it sucks because, you know, I come over here often and I edit over here often. I was like, I kind of want to tell the house, yo, you got to give me some space, bro. Like, this is my job. But it's first off, it's not my house. And Sabine, whose house it is, she's fine with the spirits, right? So I don't want to, you know, kind of like, it's me or them. It's me or the ghost. Yeah. But yeah, you know, she goes, maybe don't watch demonic movies over here. I mean, which is, but yeah, I'm here for the next couple days. I'm going to record the next 3 days of the podcast here, as I'm taking care of these cats. And, you know, I watch horror movies during the day. I went and saw Obsession yesterday at the movie theater. And finally, after all this, it just came to the theater here in town. It just came this weekend. And, yeah, I was kind of concerned about that. I was like, oh, man, is that movie going to affect me? But yeah, so as far as I mean, that's not even the creepiest. That's the creepiest thing that happened to me last week. And I would say, the first time I was really, and I'll keep this brief, the first time I was really like ghost hunting, I never even saw a ghost. I never heard a ghost until I was 17 years old. I always believed in them. I had no interactions with them. And then I started ghost hunting and stuff like that. I'd say out of all of that, the creepiest thing is what I call the Blue Boy. When I was driving down this road in Orangevale, California, gas was 97 cents a gallon, so you could just drive around for hours and hours. Driving around Orangevale, it's a creepy town. It's kind of where I grew up. And I see a kid, like in my mind's eye is the term I will use, step out into the road, and he was all blue. I don't think mind's eye is fair. I saw the guy. The kid steps out in front of my car, and I hit him, but there's no impact. And then I see him in the rearview mirror. He's sitting in my backseat.
No.
And I was like,
Oh, no.
that really freaked me out. But what the scariest part is that dude followed me around for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, I thought I was going crazy when I first started. Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, let's go to this old graveyard. Let's go see if there's ghosts in the middle of this field. But when they actually start, like, invading your daily life, I was in my early 20s, and that's like prime schizophrenia age. That's when a lot of young men get it. And I started thinking, am I losing my mind? You believe in this stuff, but this isn't real. I was at Godfather's Pizza where I used to work, and the Blue Boy was there. I was talking to my boss and my friend, and he ran out of the bathroom, this little blue glowing kid, right towards me. As I'm talking to my boss and my friend, I just went, ah!
No.
They're like, dude, what is wrong with you, bro? And I didn't say, well, I just saw a ghost come after me. That was the creepiest. And again, so how that story ended, just stopped. There was no confrontation. I didn't have an exorcism. I didn't say, I'm fighting you, Blue Boy. It just stopped. And that's the way a lot of paranormal, that's a sign for me that it's a authentic story, because then people go, and then one day it stopped. Because that's what I've experienced. So I have to use that as a baseline sometimes.
Just to talk about these cursed films, you did a couple episodes that I remember off the top of my head. You did one. You talked about I think it's called Antrim or something like that. It was a 70s movie. Tab, have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the backstory, real quick, is the film was shot in the 70s and it was submitted to a bunch of film festivals. But all of the film festival every festival director who rejected the movie died under suspicious circumstances. So that was really weird. And then there was another one called End of the Wicked, the Nigerian film.
Yeah.
And that one was just kind of notorious for the occultism and the child witchcraft and spiritual warfare and stuff like that. There was another one as well. It was a foreign movie that I don't remember the name of. I don't think it's gonna come to me. But like watching it, like you would like become possessed or something like that. There's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, there with Antrim, I think that is the that it's a more modern movie, and that's kind of the backstory. They say that it was from the 70s. I watched it, and it did have like imagery in it, but I don't necessarily think it was made back then. But I could be wrong on that. She Seeks Revenge is the foreign film you were talking about, that if you watched it, a djinn would interfere with your life. And it's one of those things, like, this director wanted an authentic scene in this movie, so he hired an actual psychic slash exorcist dude to write this, or he's like, come and be in this scene, because everyone knew him. When this movie was made, he was a very well-known psychic. It was in Egypt, and this was like in the 60s, and he's like, yeah, I'll be in it. And he said a real incantation in the movie. Like, so that stuff's real. The question is, the urban legend comes that it was released to the theaters, and the Egyptian government yanked it after a week and said, it's causing too much chaos, you have to edit it, you have to change it. We do know that the sequence was filmed, that real dude was in it, that they wanted it to be super authentic. We don't know if it caused a bunch of chaos. We do know that it's available on YouTube, but apparently that's the reshot version, which is an easy way to do an urban legend, right? You can just go, well, no, it used to do that, but no, and I could see a director doing that. I could see a director or a writer going, I want to make this authentic, let's put a real spell in it, not considering what the impact could be. And then, yeah, it was called, I think it was End of the Wicked. It was an African film, and it was cursed in a different way. It was a propaganda film against child witchcraft and resulted in the deaths of thousands of children because people were killing kids in their village. They watched this movie, which was a real, just kind of like propaganda film about this is going on in our society. Witches are disguised as children, and the people went out and killed or expelled random kids from their towns. And this was happening, I think, in the 80s, the 70s or 80s.
Jeez.
So, yeah, super nice. So, yeah, it basically is a curse. And I watched that. That's also available on YouTube, I think. It's pretty creepy. Like, you can understand why it's disturbing. And if you were in that society at that time, you're like, I don't want this happening. I don't want my family to get killed by it. So they were just getting rid of people.
Gosh.
There's a lot of I love cursed films. I love that whole idea of them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you ever end up watching? You said it was on YouTube, and I think in the episode you said that you might watch it, but I don't know if I remember you ever talking about it. But you don't seem cursed, so I'm gonna assume you either didn't watch it or it didn't work on you.
Which one?
The Egyptian one.
I don't think I might have watched the clip, but at that time, I mean, going back to that question, I was having all that djinn stuff, which again, so I was like, there might be a djinn in my house. I don't know for sure. I was finding coins in my bed, but at the same time, I just take my pants off and throw them on the bed. I don't even take the belt off. So it's possible I'm throwing coins on my own bed. And I started picking up this weird bird noise on my podcast. And I was like, so I might have elected not to watch that because at that time. Now, see, do I actually think there was a djinn in my house? Looking back on it, probably not. At the time, I was like, let's just be a little bit cautious about that. I don't know if I want to be knowingly watching an incantation. The problem is you can throw in a movie like The Mummy and not know if stuff is authentic in that, real imagery in the back. With Antrim, it was cool because what they would do is they would flash occultic imagery like over the film itself. So you would just get a glimpse of it. And if they're using authentic stuff, then how would that not be cursed? You know, if you're using actual imagery, if you're using the actual designs, that's why movies like, when you look at movies like Hereditary, have you guys seen Hereditary?
Mm-hmm.
I actually haven't.
Hereditary is a pretty good movie. I actually didn't like it very much, but I thought it was super well made. Mm-hmm. It was one of those movies that I was so on board until I'm not going to give it away, but something happens and you realize the story is different than you thought it was. And I go, it was more interesting when it was just chaos.
Yeah.
And once you start to realize there might be a power behind it, I kind of I can find myself sometimes stepping back from a movie, brilliantly made, fantastically acted. But they also used more I don't know if it was 100% authentic, but more authentic ritual stuff in that movie. And it is a heavy movie to watch. It does feel really creepy while you're watching it, more so than another similar type of occult movie.
That's been said about weapons too, about the type of occult stuff practices, that it's a little bit more accurate than usual. I thought that was cool.
It's interesting because you wonder. So I saw that movie Him, the football movie about the Illuminati. And that movie was super authentic. I was surprised they showed what they showed in that movie. As far as that director being able to go, oh no, this is how they party, this is how they hang out, this is how they communicate. I was like, what? Like how? And the movie flopped, and it'd be interesting if the director ever gets to do other work, because even at the ending, like, I can't say that was 100% an authentic Illuminati ritual, but it goes from just a bunch of people colluding to make the NFL a great sport to straight up demonic ceremonies and bloodlines and lineage. Like, you're like, okay. I really enjoyed that movie. I get that it was a big flop, but even the thing, so in Him, this isn't really a spoiler, but in Him, they do something that has long been rumored in secret societies, where you have a dummy and you tell the person it's a real person, and you say, part of your initiations, you have to shoot this person, and it's to test loyalty, right? Now, most people aren't going to pull the trigger, so you know that person, you're not going to let him into your organization, but you know it's just the dummy. He's not actually going to kill anybody. And if you pull the trigger and then you go, oh, that was just the dummy, you're like, that was just the test of your loyalty. But then it turns out it's not a dummy. It actually was a real person. It's this weird, like, double trick. They tell you just killed a dummy, but you actually did kill somebody. They hid that from you.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so they do that in Him. And that's something, like I said, reading these books about secret societies and cults, that's something I read decades ago. Is it true? I don't know. But it was a really interesting detail they put in this football Illuminati movie. When I watched it, I go, dude, that's supposedly authentic, and it's an odd detail to get right. Or, based on that lore.
Yeah. Wow.
Talking about, like, authenticity, I would be very disappointed in myself if I didn't bring up the food replicator episode, because it is by far my favorite and most talked about I've recommended to I'm like, hey, there's this podcast, it's called Dead Rabbit Radio, here's the damn episode, and it's always the food replicator episode. And I wanted to ask you how you found this story, because from what I see, I looked into it a little bit, and I found the Blogspot article that you had in the show notes back then. And it's, obviously it's still up. It was from 2004. It started in February. And I just don't understand how you found this. It's like, this is one of those, like, I feel like artifacts of the internet that I'm so amazed that there has been coverage on. And you do that very frequently. Especially, we talked a little bit before we started the podcast, but, between the episodes of like 50 to 500, you found some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard in my entire life. So, like, do you remember how you found this?
Someone emailed it to me.
Wow.
Yeah. What had happened, and this is what's really been cool about the listeners of Dead Rabbit Radio. I did an episode on this guy, Rams was the name he goes by. I actually pulled up the email, December 2nd, 2018. See, I saved the good emails. He was looking up stuff on the X iceberg, because I covered a lot of that stuff early on. And I did something on Ormus, which was, if I remember correctly, some sort of urine-based energy drink. It was some sort of weird health cult, and I did that, and he goes, hey, I was looking up the iceberg stuff, I found your Ormus video, and here's something that I found before. And he sent me the official website, global.org food replicator, and he goes into it, writes this email up about it. I read it and I was like, oh, that sounds insane. That's so nuts. I would say that's probably in the top 10, if not top 5 episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio. I think that the story's great, and I like the presentation. Those early episodes, a lot of times I stepped on my own feet. I was trying to be too goofy. Like Sam the Sandown Clown is probably one of the worst episodes of the podcast. It's so too goofy. It's such an interesting story, and it was just way too goofy. So, Food Replicator is the second thing. The story's hilarious. Just reading about it with no commentary, you're like, what is this guy? And I think my presentation worked for that. Your presentation was really good too. Again, I think you guys have a really good vibe together, which works. Yeah, when you're doing it as like a duo, I think it's really. That's why when you said, "Oh no, we don't," I don't want to.
Yeah. No, you. Yeah. Yes.
You guys don't live in the same area, which surprised me because it felt like such a casual vibe. Like I could almost picture you two guys sitting apart from each other over a digital campfire. You have that vibe. You don't understand, like, you don't get that you guys are separated. So that vibe works. You tell the Food Replicator story, you tell the time travel story.
Mike Markham. He was crazy.
Yeah, Mike Markham. Yeah, I covered him a long time ago as well. It's a great story. Mm-hmm. Again, the issue is that those stories, there's a limited amount of them. We haven't even come close to finding all of them. I think, like you said, a lost artifact of the internet. That website's down now. They still have probably the blog spot up, but those type of maniacs, that's the only way you can use to describe them. They have this burst of energy. They build this website, they post everything, and then either they stop paying the bills or unfortunately they pass away. He was just, he was eating water. He was eating food replicated water. And then he tried to like clone his daughter. He was trying to build one big enough for his kid. It's like, bro, like, I'm glad you put all this stuff down. It's super entertaining to read, but I hope everything worked out for him in the end, right? Even these people, like, and I keep forgetting his first name, but the time travel guy, Mike, is it
Mike Markham?
That is a dreamer. Like, he's not a maniac. He stole Transformers. The only reason I know all these details is because I was just listening to your episode. He did something crazy and illegal, but he was a guy who had a dream, as opposed to Paul Allen, who's nuts. Like, because he puts his body through. It would be one thing if Mike had built a time machine and blew up the warehouse he was in. Even then, you'd go, well, he probably did. I guess the time machine didn't work. Versus a prolonged decay of Paul Allen slowly wasting away. And if I remember correctly, wasn't he also trying to trick people into drinking it?
Yeah, he tried to trick people into drinking it. He had people come over to do experiments on them. He used his own semen. He did all kinds of really crazy things, and I definitely agree. It was probably one of the best deliveries of a story that you have told for a very long time, and the Food Replicate. When I think of Dead Rabbit Radio, and I admittedly, maybe the past year or so, I'm not caught up on the last maybe 70 episodes, something like that.
Pretty normal. Yeah, people go in and out, which I kind of expect that, because it's supposed to be like that. When people listen to every episode, that's awesome too. But people will be like, hey man, sorry I haven't listened for the past 2 years. I was like, that's totally fine. That's why I'll reference and put episodes in the show notes. I always act like every episode is someone's first episode. I don't ever try to just go, understand, like telling the Blue Boy story. I might not have time in this particular episode, but I go, I had an encounter with the Blue Boy. I'll put the episode in the show notes, and then I'll continue on with the story that I'm going to tell. So if you're a new listener, or if you missed that episode, if you haven't been listening for a couple of years, you're like, what, Blue Boy? That sounds interesting. You can go to the show notes and click on it and listen to that episode next if you want. And I like to put the show notes in there too, so people can check my work, or also just, maybe find their own rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I want to give you props for the amount of effort that you put into this podcast is crazy. Like, you have to think. We again, a very small thing we talked about right before we started recording. People on YouTube used to post like 2 videos a day, and that's crazy. You used to do it. Used to be the daily paranormal podcast,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that is bonkers.
Whoa.
And on top of that, you do such a good job with the show notes. You put all of your evidence, the articles you read. Sometimes, like you always go back and, like you said, you make sure that whether it's someone's 1500th episode or first episode,
Yeah.
they can go back to these things. And I just got to give you props because that is something I struggle with. Like we literally are so lucky to like we have an editor that edits our podcast episodes.
Yeah.
We talked about this, and even I still don't like I bring something up during the episode and I don't put it in the notes in the description.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what would Jason say? He's putting 15 links over here and he's connected to these 3 videos. I don't even know how he remembers all this shit because he's got
Well, here's
1600
how.
episodes.
This is how, though. This is part of it because, and I again, like I've edited stuff throughout my life. When I'm editing it and I listen, I go, oh wait a second, I need to find that show note because I made that reference to something. So that is, I mean, it does slow down the process. But while I'm sitting there and I go, oh, I go, hey, I read an article once about blah blah blah. As I'm editing it, I'll have to stop editing and look. And sometimes I'll look it up and I go, oh, that's not true. Like what I just said isn't true. So I'll edit it out. I'll take it out of the episode because that will happen. I'll say something, especially if it's offhand where I'm not really thinking about it. And then I'll look at it. There's a very recent example of that. I said, what was it? I stated some fact that turned out not to be true. And I don't remember what it was. Like bees don't sting bears or something like that. It was some weird fact. And when I was listening to it, I go, I don't know if that's true. And I Googled it and it wasn't. It was a very common fable or urban legend. It was something super recent, and I was like, I just clipped it out of the episode. I go, whatever. I'm not gonna. I mean, like, I make mistakes for sure, but if I can go in and edit them out, then that's and it didn't impact the episode. It was just like a side story.
Yeah,
These cats are going now.
I love every time. So a little backstory. I want to get into kind of the little history that we have. When I reached out, I reached out to you on Instagram, of all places, and I was like, hey, I've been listening. I would love to do an episode with you. I'd love to have you on. And it has been so interesting because I've been listening to the podcast, and here comes an episode, and this happens frequently, which I love, where you say, hey guys, this episode's going to probably be cut a little short because X, Y, and Z. You know,
Yeah.
You know, you have a very flavorful life. But this episode that I was listening to before I messaged you, you were having mouth surgery.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't want to put you through that. You didn't feel like you'd be 100%. You were still doing the podcast, which is insane. So good on you for doing that. But it always ends up being, hey, I'm going to, you know, probably cut this episode short. And then it's amongst some of the longest episodes of the podcast.
So annoying. I do it all the time. Yeah.
It's so reminiscent of myself. It's so fun because I'll get on a tangent just like I'm doing right now, and I'll keep adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, guys, we only have, you know, an hour for this episode, and then here you go, you know, 9 o'clock's rolling around. It's time for my ass to go to work. But what is the, like, when you sit down for an episode, because I'm sure every podcast, every person is different. When you sit down for an episode, what is your process like? Like, do you have like, hey, this is the time I record on this day, or like, is there a schedule?
No. I mean, it used to be I would record an episode Monday after work, and it would be done by Monday night. Like it takes, say, back then episodes were shorter, so a 30-minute long episode means it took about an hour to edit. Generally, when you see an episode that's 30 minutes, it probably has 45 minutes of material. Episodes that are an hour probably have about an hour and 15 minutes. It's garbage. The other 15 minutes are either failed jokes or pauses. But it's mostly just like, a lot of times I'll repeat myself. And so I'll have to edit this stuff out where I was like, okay, you're droning. Nowadays, we do 3 episodes a week now. On a good week, I can record all 3 on Saturday and Sunday and then edit through the week. It's very rarely a good week. Usually I record Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sometimes I'm recording Wednesday night. There are episodes recently where it's like I'm recording at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. The episode comes out Thursday morning. And that's just stressful for me. It's just stressful. But as far as like the good part of the process, I get my notes. That's the big choke point, right? I have to type up my notes so I know what I'm talking about. And as long as I have my 10 stories to choose from each week, we're golden. And then I sit down and I kind of look at my notes, sometimes not very carefully, and I start recording. And sometimes it can be funny because I'll start telling a story and realize that I got a key detail wrong. But what's funny, going to that, there's 2 different audiences for the show. One likes it to be hilarious. The other likes it to be kind of funny. It's very hard for me to be funny because I just have notes. I don't have a script. And sometimes I start recording something and this isn't going to be funny. It's not going to be funny at all. And I can't ever force the humor. It's either, if it's not funny, then I try to make it entertaining and intriguing. Because you obviously can't turn a true crime story. I mean, unless you're like Last Podcast on the Left. You can't take like a horrible true crime story and make. So I go, if I can't make it funny, which I'm fine with because I like both, right? Will it be interesting? Will it be intriguing? Will it entertain you? But it's just funny because every so often I'll get an email being like, dude, your podcast is hilarious. I recommended it to my buddy. And I'm thinking, this next episode is not funny, bro. Do not recommend this next episode. And one thing that I like to do early on, I almost made a really big mistake. I was going to do this story. I thought it was so awesome. In the 1960s, this NASA dude, this general, wrote a paper on aliens. And he talked about, this is so theoretical. He goes, if aliens use rockets, they are a warlike species, and we must treat them as such. Because only a warlike species would create rocket technology. And you're like, it's super, like, you could see a general thinking like that. He goes, if it's some sort of sci-fi type drive, who knows? He goes, but if they show up on rockets, we have to be prepared to fight them. And he started talking about all the different, he called them chemical aliens. Aliens that use chemical propulsion to go through space. Super dope. It was amazing that this guy wrote this up and presented it to the government. It's very logical. And when I was looking at it, I go, I'm super fascinated. I love this story. I want to share it with you guys. But I go, I don't know if they'll think it's entertaining or not. So I almost like put in sound effects, and I was thinking, I go, that way it'll kind of be funny. And then I go, Jason, you're an idiot. Your listeners are smart enough. They don't need boing sound effects. I mean, it would have been a fatal mistake. If I was a listener, I would have been pissed. If I sat down to listen to a podcast that I'd been listening to, and this guy thought I was so dumb I couldn't be entertained. It was really interesting. Like, I had that question and answer thing, I go, because I go, your audience is smart. Why are you thinking you need to add entertainment value to this? But yeah, sometimes I sit down and I go, this isn't going to be funny. How can I make it funny? And I may go, it's just not going to be funny. So let's make it entertaining. And but yeah, sometimes the beginning episode, first part of the episode is really funny. Second part's really kind of serious. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that you're just kind of a funny guy. Like, at the end of the day, like, I feel like you can say any of these stories, and I think it's just your delivery, or maybe you've just been doing the podcast for so long, but it's there's always just like this. I haven't listened to an episode out of the 1,500 that I've listened to at this point where I haven't cracked a smile or laughed or whatever it may be, just because of the delivery. I do want to bring up, you brought up aliens. I just want to ask you a question. What do you know about J-Rod? because we did an episode about Area 51. We also did an Atlantis episode. Please never listen to that. If you listen to our podcast, please do not listen to the Atlantis episode. It's so bad. One, we didn't cover information that we wanted to. Two, we couldn't find the information that we wanted to. And three, we thought there was less information than there actually is. There's actually a lot of information about Atlantis, and we just sucked at researching. So anyway, I wish we could throw that one into the trash compactor. Anyway,
Didn't we end up reading the like Plato thing? Or
yes, we
whatever?
literally ended up reading like some of Plato's text because we couldn't find any information on it.
Yeah,
It was actually-
Oh.
But do you know about J?
Didn't even watch the Disney movie Atlantis: The Lost Treasure.
No,
No.
dude, it would have been so much better if we just watched that movie and did an episode on it. It was so bad. It was awful.
You're gonna have to J Rod. You have to remind me.
Tab, do you want to remind him of J Rod?
So, I'm trying to remember the guy's name that like worked with J Rod. It was like the big alien guy that he's actually back in the.
Bob Lazar.
I think
Yes.
so. He
the
was
great
like
alien. J
Yeah.
Rod, yeah.
he was working with this little alien in Area 51, and that's supposed to be the alien that they have like the videos of that's on YouTube and stuff. And they were apparently best buds, I guess.
I will say that I was vaguely familiar with that name. But you're telling me he's called J Rod because he has a huge member? That's what it says on Google.
Is that actually the?
Is that
maybe we
actually-
didn't dive into that aspect.
We didn't dive into that, but if that's the case, that's very hilarious.
So according to Quora, which whatever, you know, but it says it's because he had a massive genitalia is why they called him Rod.
I thought it was.
course
a
That's true.
play on
I gotta
Jared.
cover that 100%. Like,
Yeah, you absolutely do. That's really funny. Yeah, I didn't even we didn't look into that. We did an episode on Area 51. Obviously, there's so much history there, so we could only fit so much into that hour. But J Rod was part of that, and I don't know why. I do know why, because we thought it was hilarious that they named an alien, but. He has become a reoccurring character that we bring up just because we think it's funny. And, you know, it's really interesting that this is segueing, but when you started the Patreon, what was your vision, like, as far as, like, the Patreon and the podcast in general? Like, did you ever see this as a, hey, I want this to be my full-time job, or I want this to supplement income, or like just what was the thought process?
yeah, from day one, I want to do this for a living. I love the paranormal, and I didn't realize how hard it is to market a podcast. But when I went into it, I was like, this is what I want to do. Now, if you listen to those early episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio, I make it very clear. I go, I want to sell ad space. I go, I want the money to come from the companies, not from you guys. It was maybe 3 or 4 years in where people were sending me money via Gmail. And one guy who's listed in the credits as founder of the Golden Rabbit Brigade, he's listed in the credits. Let me give him a shout out here real quick. He sent me money and he goes, dude, set up a Patreon. Yeah, if you look at the credits of each episode, thanks to Chris K, founder of the Golden Rabbit Brigade, he goes, bro, because what happened was in an episode I talked about not having enough money for groceries or something like that. And I wasn't begging, I was just kind of being, this is what actually I think it was. I said I didn't have enough money for groceries, but now I do, and I was telling a funny story about trying to get groceries home or something like that. And people sent in money, and that would happen, and it would always make me go, ah. But yeah, he goes, dude, set up a Patreon, bro. Like, we're Gmailing you money. I remember the first time, I think they were sending it to PayPal, which is set up through, like, my Gmail or something like that. And so I set up the Patreon, and even then I go, okay, guys, but I really want to focus on the advertisers. What's funny is that, so the podcast does have ads now. And we have one ad at the beginning and a couple ads at the end of each episode. They want to put ads in the middle of the episode. They go, you're going to make way more money if you do this, And there's probably like, I still have the notes. There's probably like 200 episodes where I actually wrote down the timestamp in between the two stories. Because I go, yeah, let's put ads in the middle. Let's put ads in the middle. And I thought about it and I said, we've cultivated a vibe now for years. And we're talking about the white noise with the Taco Bell commercial in the middle of it. You can skip the ad in the beginning. You can click off the ad before the episode ends. But if we took this vibe of, hey, I'm a dude, I've always said this is the vibe. We work together and I walk into the break room and I was like, dude, you won't believe what I just read on the internet. And that's been the vibe of the show. Now looking at it, having an ad in the middle would totally destroy that vibe. I really think it would take something away from the show. My concern is a lot of these hosting, my podcast host, Libsyn, is fantastic, and they have not said this at all, but other podcast hosts, they make you put the ads in your episode. There's one or two big ones out there. A buddy of mine who also does a paranormal podcast, he has to have 3 ads in the middle of his show. He has an ad at the beginning, an ad at the end, and then 3 ads throughout his show. And he goes, no, that's the podcast host. That's the hosting site. They make me do that. He goes, I make a ton of money doing it, so I'm not complaining, but because he wanted me to go over there and we talked about it. He goes, no, they'll put the ads in the middle for you. And I was like, what if I don't want to do that? He goes, well, you don't have a choice. Because you're going to make a ton of money, though. But, I would love to see just that whole chunk from beginning to end remain just kind of a vibe.
Mm-hmm. And I think that as far, like, obviously I don't know you on a super personal level, but I feel like it's almost like this parasocial thing, I guess, which I hate that term, but
I hate that term so much, man.
I hate it so much.
Yeah.
But over listening to somebody for 20 to 50 plus minutes, multiple times a week, you kind of feel like maybe you know something about them, and I can tell that you're a good dude, and obviously you're thinking about everyone that listens. You could be making a bunch more money, but you're making that decision, and I agree that the vibes would definitely be off.
Yeah.
But is that putting you in a position like where you could be making enough money to fully support your dreams if you did that? Or is that like I don't really need to, or I don't care?
It would be a big help, right? I mean, I do well with what I do. It would be, because see, that's the hard thing to skip. That's why advertisers love that. You start the episode, it's going to have an ad. You hit 30 seconds ahead. Maybe the ad's a minute. Hit it again. You're good. But when people are driving or doing their homework, they're not going to reach over. They're less likely to reach over and hit that skip button in the middle. And advertisers know that. Most of the ads that run to the end of the episode, most people are just going to click those off. And it says, if I started running ads earlier in the podcast, say a year or 2 or even 3 years in, it would have been different. But once we got 5, 6, 7, 8 years, now it's a vibe. Like, imagine year 1, we started running mid-roll ads. Everyone would have been like, oh, this is the vibe. Tells a story, ad tells a story, we're done. But at this point, it's just a different show. Which is interesting. If I would like to comment though on the parasocial thing,
please.
The thing that drives me nuts about that is people use it, and you did not use it this way, but people in my social circle will use it to dismiss things and creators they don't like. Or they'll be like, oh, YouTuber's a parasocial thing, podcast a parasocial thing. And I always go, what about your favorite author who wrote those books that speak to your soul and you feel like you know them? And they're like, well, that's different. I go, no, it's the same thing. You don't know Stephen King. You've never met him. But my dad loves Stephen King, even though Stephen King shot John Lennon, as we all know. My dad loves Stephen King, and he goes, it reminds me of my childhood, because they did grow up in that same era. He goes, I read those books, and he talks about stuff that I remembered as a kid. Now, nowadays, we call that member berries. Nowadays, we call that nostalgia bait. But to my dad's generation, that's an author who writes of that style. I could say my dad has a parasocial relationship with Stephen King. But you don't use it for authors. You don't use it for directors. You use it for YouTubers and podcasters and influencers. it fits everyone or it fits no one. That's my take on it. I'm not saying that's not real.
Yeah.
I'm just saying a lot of times it's used to dismiss stuff. People, oh, they just have a parasocial relationship. Da, da, da.
Yeah, I,
So
I
that's what
definitely agree. It's one of those things where it's like, have you actually interacted with this person? No. That's kind of, it is what it is. But like,
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. Um,
And I don't
Tab,
necessarily think it's a bad thing either.
yeah, I don't
It,
think so.
yeah, it used to be like you watch television to see a family you didn't have, right? Whether it was the Cosbys, which is a bad example nowadays, but the Cosbys or even the Bundys or the Simpsons, it was just like this community that you would be a part of once a week. Newscasts are set up to mimic a married couple. That's why it's usually a man and a woman. And then you have the funny sports uncle guy. You have the weather lady. They really designed those news crews for a reason. Now they will sometimes have two male newscasters, two female newscasters, but for the longest time, because it mimicked that family vibe. You knew every night at 6, you'd see these two people come on. They talk to you about the news. It's the same thing. You do kind of get to feel like you know somebody, but I don't know. I think it fills a loneliness gap in a lot of people. Is kind of what I'm getting at. So I don't think it's necessary. It's when they show up at your doorstep, right? Is when it becomes alarming. That's when it's.
Have you had that?
Here's the thing. I will tell a funny story, but other than that, I've had interactions with people that I don't like to go into because I don't give them that attention, right?
Sure.
If I tell a story about something happening and then someone goes, oh, that's what gets him riled up, like never, yeah. But anyways, this was funny because this was like kind-hearted. One day, this dude, I was sitting there and I, check my email all the time. This guy emails me and he goes, I know where you live. And I'm not telling you that to scare you, dude. He goes, you give away a lot of clues. He sent me a photograph. He goes, this is where you live, right? And I didn't confirm it, but he goes, all of these things you say in the first 100 episodes or whatever it was. And again, he wasn't a crazy guy. This was his second time listening through the podcast. And he picked up this stuff and he goes, I figured out where you live, dude. And he was saying this, I'm telling you this so you can edit it out. And then you don't have to worry about it. I'm worried that someone might show up. So again, like that was him looking out for me. It wasn't threatening to me at all. He was actually concerned. He goes, oh, dude, if I can do it, then other people can probably do it too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think anyone that shows up to an online personality's place of living is that's so cringe. Like it's
yeah, at the least, it's criminal depending on what.
yeah.
But you guys are doing like live ghost hunts, right? You guys are going out to locations. Have you guys done a live show? Like meeting up with fans, going to a location, doing it at like a pub?
No, it's nowhere close to that level at all. But no.
I can meet up with my mom. I mean, hey, Mom.
You'd be surprised. The first time I did that ghost conference, I thought, who's going to travel? Who's going to travel out to see me? And we had, we had the ghost conference. I still got my ghost conference shirt. This is from
You're talking about the one this year?
Yeah. But even the first one we did a couple years ago, me and Sabine went out there, my friend Sabine, and I go, we're going to do the ghost conference. And we had probably 7 people travel from different parts of the state to come. And I was like, 7 people? Because that was just awesome. People got in their car and bought tickets and made hotel plans. And they're like, dude, I've always wanted to see you. It was dope. So you don't, even if, and what's funny is like, let's say you guys do, well, I know you guys don't live in the same area. That can make it difficult. But you guys do a coffee shop tour and you make fans that way too. People are sitting there and going, oh, I've never heard of you guys before. I just happened to stop into that coffee shop. But that connection can help a lot as well.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that. That's a good idea.
It's funny because it's like cart before the horse type of thing. Like, do you wait until you have an audience before you do a live show, or do you do live shows and attract an audience? I think totally depending on different factors that one can kind of feed into the. Because so when I do the Oregon Ghost Conference, it's funny because I had a table where I had all of this merch, and I did like a UFO convention here in town. And no numbers moved up, nothing. We put $1,000 into like stickers and merch, and not including travel. Maybe not $1,000, maybe like $500 in merch stuff. I still have a crate of stickers. Nothing, no boost, anything.
Thank you for the stickers, by the way.
Well, now you know why I have so many. The Carpenter Copter stickers, there's probably, I usually have maybe 50 or 100 of those at a time. But the other square sticker, I ordered 1,000 of those to just hand out. Yeah, we didn't see any boost in listenership, which was, I go, okay, so we're not going to get tables anymore. We're just going to focus on talking. We're going to focus on walking around. And that has that's given me more legitimacy. Now, other ghost hunters know who I am. People go, oh, dude, I'm looking forward to your speech. It's always hilarious. And I'm like, it puts more stress on me if people expect me to be funny versus just giving a presentation. But yeah, I go, I'm just going to walk around. I'm going to spend 3 days walking around the convention. If people find me, they find me. Like, I know that sounds kind of... Generally, they see me on stage. I come off right. They know what I look like, and we talk. And throughout the convention, I'll say, "Hey, man, what's up?" Like, I'll see them around the next day or two. We'll still chat and all that stuff. But I just walk the booths and talk to people and connect and network.
Yeah,
that's helped a lot. That's actually helped. That doesn't cause a boost in the numbers, but it causes a boost in my legitimacy. Other people are talking about me. Other people like me. Because I'm not just a guy sitting in my own booth and that guy sitting in his booth. I'll go talk. Brian Blackwood is this guy that I met who's an author who, I don't remember what came first, if he listened to the podcast or if he heard about my podcast at one of the live shows. Yeah, dude, I'll go, we'll chat it up, hang out and stuff like that. And then you just have a genuine friendship too. And that's always a fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the one that did the Rook Mason series? Okay.
Yeah. Which I still haven't read. I have a copy of his audiobook, his physical book, and his ebook.
I don't know if it's the generation that I grew up in or what happened, but I think my brain is melted. I can't hold like a book. It's actually like sometimes I feel like an iPad kid. I'm not, but it's really hard for me to get through a book. It's amazing how awful it is to try and sit down and read a book. And I've gotten a lot better, but it's pretty bad.
A couple of years ago, I picked up a magazine and I was reading it, and I realized something. I go, this information's not going to change. It's printed on this page, and I can't refresh it and get a comment or new information. Wow. Yeah. I grew up on newspapers, right? I'm 50 in a couple months, so I grew up on newspapers, magazines, books. And even my brain has become so internet-driven. Shouldn't say even my brain like I'm a genius, but you know what I mean? Like, I grew up... we'd read the newspaper. And I was a journalism major. I knew newspapers were doomed after 9/11. It was like 3 days after 9/11, I walked by a newsstand, and every article printed in that newspaper, I already knew all the information. I'd learned it online 2 days ago. Yeah. And I said, this is doomed. The print newspaper is on its way out because it's just so slow. It was so slow. But yeah, I was reading a magazine. It was an interesting article, and then it dawned on me, none of this information will ever change. It's been printed. That's it. Versus, I can go online and read an article and something could be different about it, right? Like I said, a comment or, whatever.
Like an update a few days later.
An update, yeah. A link to something, like, oh, here, if you want to know more about it, click here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. But yeah, I mean, I guess, like, when you're out and about, I actually, we have a grocery chain called Kroger over here.
Yeah.
And they have this newspaper box or whatever, and sometimes I'll snag a newspaper, which I just found out that you're supposed to pay for. So I've been double scanning some of the newspapers because I've been accidentally stealing them. But like every now and then, if it's like something on the front page that like I'm like, whoa. I'll pick up a newspaper, but like nobody's reading the whole newspaper anymore. Most people, like even the people that are reading the newspaper, don't read the whole newspaper.
I read the comics.
I think that's so. And even some of them, like some of the comics, are stopping. Like
I bet,
it's really interesting. Just like where newspapers have gone. My grandfather has done the crossword puzzle for the past 20 years in the newspaper. And when he moved, he doesn't get the newspaper anymore. And I was like, are you gonna do you like do it online? He's like, yeah, just do it online. I don't read the paper anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what they want us to do. They don't want us to read the news. Yeah, this and that. Like it's all this stuff. But yeah, it's really crazy how fast the like you said, like during 9/11, like you could just read that information. Why get the
Yeah.
paper? Why read it?
Yeah.
Why any like there's no point in it. And I just wonder like how obsolete, especially with AI. I know that's something that you touch on here and there, but with a lot of this AI stuff, it's getting really, really hard to figure out the legitimacy of things. And I think in
Mhm.
1 to 5 years, it's going like a lot of stuff is going to be really, really difficult to be able to be like, is this real? And that's why when we started talking about doing the ghost hunts and the cryptid hunts, if we by chance capture something, it's going to be harder to believe because of AI. And you know, there's already editing footage and CGI and visual effects and all of that, but now you have AI that's doing all of this stuff. So it's like we have sworn that if we find anything, whenever we go on a trip, it's legit every single time.
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
we're not going to fake anything. I don't care how much money that people are going to pay, because we talked about the dynamic. I want to be proven wrong that the paranormal is without a shadow of a doubt real, and here's the evidence. If I do not get that, no amount of money is going to make me a good actor. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so it's just not going to work. And same thing vice versa for Tab. Tab is a much better actor than me, so maybe a certain dollar amount will get by. But like at the end of the day, like we're not going to fake anything. And
Yeah.
I think getting to the point where, you know, it's going to be hard to find people that stand by that, because companies they have endless money. So if a company offered us $2 million to be like, I don't know, big paranormal hits us up and is like, hey, ghosts are real now. We know that you guys do ghost hunts. You're gonna say that ghosts are real. Here's $2 million, and then they just like, here's some AI footage.
Yeah.
Like we're not gonna do that. But we can't prove that we don't do that if, you know, we have this footage that is real. But how do you tell? So it's like, what are your thoughts on AI? I don't know how versed you are in it. Us, you know, being, you know, in that younger generation right now, we actively think about it frequently, and
Yeah.
it's a tool that's used in day-to-day life, whether we want it to be or not. So, like, how are you kind of dealing with that?
Well, it's funny because we were covering, and I use we like the royal we. It's just me. It confuses people all the time. We were covering AI way back in the day when the Miami newspaper was using AI to write real estate listings. This was before Midjourney. This was before ChatGPT. You had people using. I think it was before Chat. It seemed like a long time ago. I find it endlessly fascinating. I think that, and I know this pisses people off, I purposely don't use AI to like do artwork for the show. Originally, I was thinking about it. I could go, the early episodes had different artwork for each episode. And I thought, and it was just took a long time to do. So then I go, oh, use AI and stuff like that. A lot of my listeners hate AI, and I totally understand where they're coming from. But when I was a young man in college for journalism, I was a writer, and then we had the photojournalism department. And you should have heard the hours long debates over Photoshop, which was brand new at the time, or at least commercially brand new. Huge arguments in the photojournalism. You can't use Photoshop. You have to take the photo in the moment. That's it. This is history. This is news. If you want to use it for arts and entertainment, whatever. But I took a picture of this event. I am not blurring out or erasing that item back there. And I remember at the time there was a huge news story. Some athlete got injured at the Olympics or some big sporting event. There was a medic kneeling down to help them. I don't remember. And the medic had an antenna off of a backpack, and it looked like the antenna was poking out of the person's head. Well, the newspaper photoshopped the antenna out. Huge news story about the Photoshop. Should a newspaper go in and modify an item like that? Nowadays, you have to use Photoshop if you're doing anything photography. just adjusting the lighting. Could not get a job in a newspaper unless you knew how to use Photoshop. That's what AI is going to be like in 5 years. People can say I'm not using AI. AI is the worst. I'm not going to use it for graphic art. I'm not going to use it to modify my own art or create new art. But in 5 years, you better know how to use Midjourney if you're going to be a graphic designer and illustrator. That's just as maybe 10 years, but I watched it happen with Photoshop. When I tell that, people go, well, that's different. But it wasn't then. It was a tool that photographers hated because they were trained their entire life. Click, and you immortalize that moment on that strip of film, and that was unchangeable. You literally couldn't do anything with it unless you really got into, like, at that point, cutting film and all that stuff. Nowadays, you have to use Photoshop. You took a photo, it's a little too gray out, just brighten it up.
I mean,
I think. Go ahead.
It's the same thing with the computer. They said, "Oh, everyone's not going to use a computer. Why would we use that?" You cannot find a person on the street that does not have a computer in their pocket. Like, and I do think we admittedly, when we first started the podcast, we used AI to do the logo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what we wanted to do, but I mean, you couldn't pay me good money to make anything legible, even handwriting, let alone some artwork.
Just
And we were super duper broke, and we are just now, like, we've been talking about getting actual logos because we're doing different channels. We want to actually pay an artist, this and that. But I mean, it's just so, like, if you don't have the skill, it just goes to show you that it's that easy to use AI. And we don't want to do that, but it's easier to get your foothold. Someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to replace you. So it kind of sucks. I definitely understand where people are coming from. I hate that the way that AI works is it takes from other people's work and makes it its own when it's actually using other people's stuff. But as long as there's a balance, right? Like, there's still journalists, right? There's still people that process information. So I don't think AI is going to completely get rid of journalism. Is it going to replace a lot of the aspects of it? Sure.
Yeah.
Same thing with art, right? Like, you're going to do AI touch-ups. Like, some of these movies that are coming out now have AI touch-ups or AI generated, scenes or whatever. And people still get upset with it. I'm like, that's kind of gross, but that's just unfortunately the corporate world that we live in, with Nvidia getting big and OpenAI and all of this.
Yeah.
So I was just really curious how you thought about all of it, because I think everyone's understanding of AI and their position on it is pretty similar, where it's like, this sucks, but this is where things are going. And all of these data centers and stuff like that, it's just kind of a nightmare for everyone and everything. But I hate to say, what am I going to do about it? But we can only do so much.
It's an interesting question. On the one, again, to me, it's a tool. I don't make my living as an artist. I could definitely. Now, here's the thing. I do foresee the podcasting space. It's already happening. People are putting out 10,000 podcasts a day. They're called micro podcasts. They're just on local weather. And you have one company just flooding them, and you can listen. It's totally disposable. I've always said, my big concern is, I have 1,500 episodes, 1,600 episodes. And, okay, cool. I'm going on a road trip. Let's listen to some Dead Rabbit Radio. But let's say this. Let's say that you're going on a road trip to Sedona, Arizona. And you can go, has Jason ever done an episode about Sedona? Or you can go to one of these AI programs and they will just get more advanced, and you go, make me a 2-hour-long podcast involving UFOs and ghosts in Sedona, Arizona. And within minutes, you will have two hosts, have one guy not believe, another guy totally believe everything, make them funny. And then you have a personalized podcast of two people talking about just stuff in Sedona, Arizona, designer podcasts. That is a future of podcasting. Will it replace all of us? I don't know, but it's going to replace some of us. I think that you're going, and this is where the parasocial thing, the virtual friend comes into play, because people go, I have a relationship with Midnight Oil podcast. I've been listening to them. I know their vibe. I just want to listen to them talk about paranormal stuff. They may still get the designer podcast, but you'll have the people who listen to you for you. The content is secondary, you know? So like you said, you guys do gaming and things like that as well. See, that's where you have the hosts, the main part. The secondary part is the content. There are the podcast that I was talking about, the designer podcast, the content is first. You're wanting this content. The host is second. And different podcasts are going to fill different niches. But I did dip my toe into that. I thought, how could I do this? How could I start a designer podcast? This is a true story. I might have told it on the show. So I go, could I start making a true crime podcast, which I love, but I don't cover that much. Could I make a true crime podcast, an AI one with 2 hosts? And I used that thing that Microsoft set up, where I forgot what it's called. And it creates an audiobook or audio podcast. So I set it up and I had 2 hosts and they were going to talk about Ted Bundy. And what's cool about this program is you can edit it on the fly. So they're talking, because I actually, there's a local AI collective where we get together once a month and talk about AI and stuff like that. I haven't been in it for a while but that's where I heard about it. Notebook GM, Notebook LM, I think is what it's called. You can have it and you go, tell me about, I have to read this Plato paper on Atlantis. Can you discuss it? Can you make it a 15-minute podcast? So these 2 hosts will be talking about it. And you go, you know what, speed it up a little bit. Get straight to the facts. And then it will, within a minute, rewrite it and it'll be a more factual 7-minute long version of that. So you can edit it on the fly. So I said, do Ted Bundy, do a 30-minute podcast about Ted Bundy, and this man and this woman host are talking about it. And I go, be funny, tell some jokes, be funny. And they said, this is not a funny topic. This is about serial killers. This is super serious. And I was like, I have the worst time with AI. It never does what I want it to do. It constantly, and it admonished me for like 3 minutes, telling me it's not funny. And I'm just like sitting there listening, and I was like, this isn't for me. I tried getting ChatGPT to make me a logo for a fraternity I'm starting called Cap Attack Fraternity, based on this homeless video game designer's sorority. I said, make me a logo like a crest for a fraternity, but put in one of them a man with a bindle, and it lectured me about misappropriating homeless imagery. I go, dude, I just want a logo or a joke that I'm going to put. So I was like, the AI, I guess my brain, what I think of AI doesn't want to do. So can't tell funny true crime stuff. So it does have those limits, right? It goes, we're not going to make jokes about Ted Bundy. This last podcast on the left does. I'm not saying it's a laugh riot, just so we're clear, but I was just kind of using it as an experiment. And it's like, no, we're a soulless machine, but you are more evil than we are. We're not going to do that. Yeah. I love AI. Like if I was younger, I probably would go, I want to do a comic book in AI, and I'd really like delve in and learn it. I think just because I'm doing the podcast, I don't have a lot of time. I love it. I understand why people don't like it. It's totally valid. It's a threat to a lot of people's livelihood. Like, I get it. And it's coming for the podcasting space as well. But as just someone who likes tech, it's fascinating. I mean, who would have ever thought that we would have this outside of a Star Trek? Like, you could say, write me a 80,000 word novel. Well, the other day I go, how would the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles do in the world of The Walking Dead? And ChatGPT like busted out this straight up outline for me. It was dope. They said freaking survivors would never know they were there. It would be fighting because they'd be perfect. And I'm reading it because I don't want to read a novel, right? Just so give me an outline. And it's like how they would deal with the initial stages of the infection. They go, they live in the sewer. There's not even any zombies down there. They perfected. And it's so funny because they go, the only danger they'd be in is they never leave a brother behind. So if Michelangelo got cornered, all 4 turtles may die trying to rescue him. I was like, dude, that's dope. This is awesome. Like, that's fascinating. Now, I could have sat and I could have brainstormed that, or even better, sat with some buddies and talked it out. But in that moment, I go, I wonder what would have happened if Ninja Turtles were around in The Walking Dead. Yeah. So stuff like that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think AI is really interesting. And, I'm back and forth on it because I know it's not fantastic for the environment, but it's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
like
that too.
there's so many things that it's going to be useful for, and it's just kind of. I mean, it's the new computer. It's the
Yeah.
new like everyone's going to use it. Like you said, in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Tab, I
I do,
know
can,
that. No,
can I
go
say
ahead.
one more quick thing
Yeah, yeah.
about AI? There is one thing. So I have a hard time coming up with titles for my episodes. And one day I was sitting here and I was thinking, dude, what am I going to name this episode? Or what am I going to name this episode? I was at Sabine's house and she goes, why don't you use ChatGPT? And I looked at her, I said, never. So the second I do that, the second I stop exercising my brain just to come up with something for a title, I'll lose that ability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
another thing. Like, it's a tool, it's a computer. But think about it. We were just saying we have a hard time reading books and magazines now. So it's like it does have that effect on us. I think the internet's a
Yeah.
net positive. I think that when you look at all the good, I think smartphones are a net positive. But yeah, it does do stuff to us where now when I read a book, I'm kind of like, this is kind of boring. I could read it, an interactive article on it or an article about the same topic, but reading a book just feels different. It feels slower almost.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to cut you off there, though.
No, no, no. You're good. Tab, do you want to ask one or two more questions, and then I'm gonna ask a couple of my last questions, and we can end it out. I know you gotta go soon.
Let me pull up my thing again. So one of the bigger questions that I was gonna ask, well, broader rather, is what's the most out of pocket conspiracy that you believe in?
Ooh, okay. Most out of pocket conspiracy theory I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good question.
Yeah, yeah, because you could just say what's the weirdest one ever, and then that's a fun question. You know what? This is one we talked about it before on the show. It's Lady Gaga. I don't know if I really believe this one, but I do find it interesting whether or not Lady Gaga is a murderer. But as far as one that I actually like, I still think about to this day because I'm a huge fan of gangster rap. I listen to it all the time. The conspiracy theory that gangster rap was basically funded by private prisons. There's this,
Okay.
yeah, you had the private prison industry, like gangster rap existed. But the private prison industry invested millions of dollars into these rap labels to promote this gangster lifestyle to get kids to do dumb stuff and end up in prison. And it all stems from a story of a music producer who said he was invited to this exclusive meeting in the Hollywood Hills back in the late 80s. And he says he and all these other music producers were there and they were offered this deal. We will give your label millions of dollars. You just got to produce gangster rap, and it's for the private. They didn't say, and it's for the private prison industry. What they said was, these guys are here from these private prison industries. Like they let them know what the deal was without, saying they're exactly this is what they want. And the dude was like, I'm not going to be a part of this. And another music producer said, me neither. And they were kind of roughly thrown out of the party and said, don't ever tell anyone about this. And then fast forward 20 years, it was like an article in Double XL magazine, or it was in some hip hop magazine where I read it. And I've heard other rappers talk about it too. I think Ice Cube's made a vague reference. Ice Cube makes gangster rap. Doesn't mean that all gangster rap is bad, but it means that parts of the industry are supported by people who have a vested interest in putting young people in prison. It's a conspiracy theory that
Wow.
makes sense because so many conspiracy theories can be boiled down to just greed, right? Why would they do that? Well, power or money. It makes sense. Is it true? I don't know, but it would not boggle my mind if it turned out to be true. That's probably the craziest because it's such a huge part of the music industry. And you go, are you saying Dr. Dre wants young men to go to prison? No, I don't think that's the case. But who's the company controlling this record company that's controlling this record company? And private prisons, they needed people in them.
That's true.
That is
Yeah.
true. I could believe that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I could
seems
too.
super
I
believable.
I bet you with enough like articles and information, I would probably believe that because that
Mhm.
sounds, I mean, so realistic. Kind of rounding us out. I'm gonna rapid fire a couple questions,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then we can adjourn. Um, how many more years of Dead Rabbit do we have?
I would like to say 12, right? Let's do an even 20. That would, though, put me around 62, which feels old, like looking ahead. But when I'm 60, I'll be like, it's nothing.
Yeah, you'll have
Yeah.
another 20 years left in you after that.
Maybe, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. We go, the stories were way better. Episodes, say 50 to 500 or whatever. 10 years from now, we'll be like, Jason, the show, it used to be way better back in 2026. 1,500 episodes was the golden age. So, I mean, as long as I can continue to find content and as long as I'm having fun, that's one thing that I've really lucked out on. I chose stuff that I'm passionate about and I've loved since I was 12. So the burnout from like the workload is real, but I'm never like, I don't want to read about Ghost anymore. I don't want to read about. That's what I'm really lucked out by picking the manifestos. Would I've been able to do for 8 years? Probably not. Reading the darkest. Who knows? The show could have been a huge hit, but could I have done it for 8 years? Just like constantly reading these. This is why I murdered all these people documents. So yeah.
Yeah.
12 years would be nice. 5 more years would be great as well. But yeah, as long as I can.
What is after the podcast?
Well, what's funny, before AI, probably going back to writing, I used to write a lot and stuff like that. And then I thought about writing books, about the paranormal. At one point, I was just going to take the transcripts of all the old episodes and publish them. And someone goes, dude, that's super lazy, bro. Don't do that. But, I talked about doing a book, World's Wildest Bigfoot Story, or World's Weirdest Bigfoot Stories. And it's about Mormon Bigfoot and Bigfoot flying the UFO and Bigfoot with the massive genitalia that he can use to block a river. It created a dam, all this stuff. And people turning into Bigfoots. And I would love to write that book. But with AI, like you were talking about with the video footage, how will I say that it's real? I can write this book. I can I already have all the notes, right, from the episodes, but I can craft this book and someone can spit out the same book with AI in a weekend. And it's like, how do I compete with that? I would like to write stuff like that, though. I'd like to continue to contribute to the paranormal culture. I'd like to continue to be part of that space. But if I'm not doing an audio podcast, a book would be cool. Or maybe a Netflix series, right? Maybe if I
really
had
cool.
my beard back, I could actually be presentable. My hair's all wiry. It's not good luck, but
Do you see yourself doing other things than the podcast as like your main, hey, this is what I like to do? Like, do you ever think about doing YouTube full time or going on ghost hunts, or actually, like you were talking about doing the book? Do you ever think about like hunting down some of these cryptids?
Yeah. The YouTube thing, I would never want to be connected to one medium that is so what's the word, where you just be wiped away at a minute. But anyways, no. I would love to do more YouTube shorts. I did like doing the short true crime stuff. I had a lot of fun with that, and I need to get back into that. I've always wanted to go back to doing live ghost hunts. I think just traveling the United States, doing the podcast from locations where the stories took place, would be awesome.
We have talked about doing that.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you brought that up. That is something that we've talked about.
It would be great. And again, so let's say you guys do that, right? This is how you guys should do that. Before you go out there, contact the local newspaper. Say, hey, we're 2 guys, we're paranormal hunters, we're coming out, we have this podcast. They will do a piece on you. Journalists are always looking for stuff to write about. And this idea that journalists walk around looking for news stories can happen, but trust me, we're lazy. I used to get letters every single day. This was for a college newspaper. Cover me, cover me, cover me. And a lot of times we would. A new aquarium opened up. Fine, we'll write a story about this aquarium because it was something for us to write. We needed space to fill. And we knew there wasn't a big news story, so that's what you do. You go out to this area and you contact the people in the area, say, hey, we're going to come out, we're going to do this live ghost hunt. They'll cover you, and again, it's that self-generating thing. You get new content because you're out there. You're meeting people out there. You're promoting the show, and people who may have never heard of your podcast are reading the website or looking in the newspaper and they see, here you go, Midnight Oil Podcast. Oh, I should check them out. They're doing a story on a local thing. They're actually visiting. Because here's the thing, most people don't know you from Sam and Cody. For all they know, you're the biggest paranormal podcasters in the world. There's no reason not to. You don't have to lie. You don't have to correct them either. You go, oh, yeah, no, we're coming out here. Someone called us. I guess that is a lie, but you know what I mean. You go out there and you promote the piece out there. You get new content. You get new listeners. See, I would love to do that. I'd love living in hotels like Sam and Dean Winchester, but instead of like shooting monsters, which would be cool, but I don't think you can do. You're going out to these locations. You're covering stories. I would love to do video like that, and if it's on YouTube, that would be great. I could never say I'm going to put all my eggs in the YouTube basket, because at any point, see, I don't worry about getting demonetized because most of my stuff on YouTube isn't monetized anyways. I'll say all the words you're not supposed to say because I don't care. If they took the channel down, it would suck because all of the comments, the years and years of community on there. But I don't want to put all my eggs in that YouTube basket. But yeah, just traveling around, that'd be dope.
Well, if we're in the area, we'll have to do a ghost hunt.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, swing on by Hood River whenever. Apparently, it's easy to find out where I live. You can listen to 100 episodes.
Yeah, I'll
send me a
look
photo. It was pretty funny. Like I said, he had my best interest in mind. He was kind of trying to protect me.
Yeah.
But yeah, people do swing by. People swing by Hood River. We'll go out and have a bagel, a coffee every once in a while. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all. Tab, you got skedaddle. Jason, I really appreciate you making time for us. I'm glad that your mouth is healed and it, maybe, unfortunately, no superpowers, but I'm glad that it's healed fully.
Back to normal.
Tab, I think we kind of hit the nail on the head. Any last words? Oh, yeah. Jason, plug anything you want. I mean, are you doing anything other than the podcast that you want people to know about? If you want them to know about the podcast, where can they find you?
Dead Rabbit Radio is the podcast. You can find it anywhere podcasts are available: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, and then you can also find it on YouTube. So, and at deadrabbitradio.libsyn.com. I have deadrabbit.com and deadrabbitradio.com. If you go to those websites, they're so poorly designed. They're really bad. Like one of them's a GoDaddy landing page that doesn't even link to the podcast. It's just like a picture, and if you click on it, nothing happens. But no, as far as that goes, hit me up on Battlefield. Isn't it? If you play Battlefield 6, hit me up. My Steam username is Dead Space Rabbit. It's pretty much all I do outside of podcasts is play Battlefield 6 right now. That's my midlife crisis because I played that a lot in my early 20s. I realized, this is me reliving my youth. Which is good. Out of all the stuff I could recreate in my 60s, 50s, this is the healthiest one. So yeah, this is it. I'm doing fine. No, guys, it was a pleasure. This is actually the longest interview I've ever done. It's been. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. Yeah,
good.
It just flew by. It was awesome.
Cool. Well, yeah, guys, check out Jason at Dead Rabbit Radio anywhere that you can listen to a podcast. You can check out Midnight Oil anywhere that you can find a podcast. You can also find it on YouTube. And maybe again, we could sit down for days and talk. So maybe at some point, if the stars align, we can chit chat again.
Yeah, totally awesome. Yeah, anytime.
But guys, I think that's it. We will see you guys all next week.
Good night.
Good night.